Rich people of Reddit, what does it feel like? What's the best and worst thing about being wealthy? Have a very good friend from way back when whose entire family has never worked, going back to before the Great Depression. We have talked at great length over the years about it. He says the best part is all your decision making is made without money being a consideration. It's a weird concept for us common folk. But a $300 5-course steak meal in Nick and his favorite $7 Chinese restaurant hold the same value for him. When we first started driving and splitting tabs in high school, he had a difficult time grasping why 4 people shouldn't split a check evenly when his part was half of it. He wasn't trying to be a jerk. It was just completely foreign to him and had to be learned way too late in life. He says the worst part is what I discussed above. A disconnected feeling with the majority of all of us. Every summer his family would go on extravagant trips all over the world, while the rest of us would hang out and play pool or video games. When he got back he felt like he was the one missing out, even though he spent the summer on a yacht visiting different South Pacific islands. He is a good guy though. And now that we are older he has found a great happy medium, working a job for fun while always being generous enough to pick up most tabs. Till not to let people know you are rich. I'm affluent, but not rich. My friend is rich, so I get to see a front row seat. The best thing is he can do anything he wants, whenever he wants. But interestingly he's put limits on himself. Settled down. Purchases a normal sized, but very nice, house. And had kids. So he is tied down a lot more. The worst thing is that all motivation to do things must come internally. Nobody is telling him to do anything, so if he wants to accomplish something he has to provide the self-discipline. Also, he is very generous, but has a weird attitude towards money. I've seen so-called friends assume he'll just pay for something because he can afford it. He doesn't, and that cools the friendship pretty quickly. I think the reason we are so close is I've never asked him for anything financially. Yes, he'll pick up the dinner tab more often than me, but I take my turn, probably every third time. But I never expect it. And I treat him like a person, not a bank. My French butler doesn't type comments fast enough. The number one benefit of having money is not having to worry about money. Number 2 is being able to be generous towards friends, family and loved ones. Anybody who wasn't born into it daydreams about all the toys they'd buy when they have lots of money. And if you come into it fairly rapidly, incredible job straight out of university, get in on a successful startup, etc. For the first while, you'll collect those things. And it's cool. But after a while, you have all that stuff. And at best, you'd be upgrading things you already own, so the thrill of new things fades. And the final thing you'll say to yourself once you've finally made it is, hey, money really doesn't buy happiness. Damn it. Double quote. The best part of being rich is being able to lord Reddit gold over all you goldless punes and your precious silver. Just wanted to take advantage of the lack of a serious tag. The gold train departed hours ago. Peasants. Sorry. You'll just have to buy another ticket and wait at the station like everybody else. Right square bracket. My mother used to have a millionaire boyfriend. We moved into his house. Life was pretty great. Lots of vacations. Free stuff. But life always finds a middle way, for normal people, on your emotional level. You can't have happiness without pain. Having a lot of money is normal. You find other things to be sad about. They broke up. I still feel the same without all the money. Gifts and stuff. The feeling of wanting something, money, is stronger than actually having something, I believe. A TV show that aired recently here in the UK, John Richardson Grows Up, covered the subject of money recently, both those who have it, such as the kids of a British billionaire, and those who choose to live off-grid. The son of the billionaire wasn't coping well with it at all, as he felt he'd not earned the wealth he'd inherited, and spent his days in his room surfing Facebook. However, a lottery winner, who'd not exactly earned it either, summed it up quite well by saying money doesn't bring you happiness, but it's easier to be unhappy and rich than it is to be unhappy and poor. If you've not seen the show, then it's worth watching. My story is going to be a bit different. I'm a girl who grew up wealthy but has dated ultra rich guys. This might seem intuitive, but the experience is. Most people cannot simply charter a private plane to Vegas for the night, or choose between vacation homes based on the weather in each location, or buy their kids brand new luxury cars every year. I have had the opportunity to see and go places I never would have been able to otherwise. From sightseeing beautiful and historic places, to getting into bars and clubs reserved for the VIPs, all the way down to walking into world famous strip clubs and offering girls thousands of dollars just to come back and party with us. In a lot of ways, it was often surreal. Worst, the attitude some wealthy people have. Passing judgment on the stupidest of things. Usually how much wealth other people have. Like, I remember other women looking me up and down like I'd just walked out of a homeless shelter or something because I had the audacity to wear anything other than Burberry sweaters and Alexander McQueen shoes. It's not as if I didn't grow up around wealth either. My family is easily within the 1%, but my parents were super humble and always taught us to be thankful every day for what we had, because so many don't. Between that and the other pervasive attitude of if poor people don't want to be poor they should work harder attitude. This thread makes me think maybe I shouldn't put such a large focus on money. Edit. It's too much work to respond to everyone. But yes, I agree that having enough to not worry about rent, your next meal, etc. is very important. However, the fear of putting too much effort, time into attaining wealth and not enough into relationships is very real. A teacher I had in high school who taught me physics sold his consultancy company to a larger corporation for several $billion. Yes, you read that, read billion with a B. He and his partner split it 50-50. After relaxing for a couple of years, he decided to go into teaching. Guy was the most laid back teacher I ever had. Almost every Friday he would bring in donuts, and since he had an engineering background, he wanted to get a lot of students interested in engineering, so he organized these engineering dinners. Man, those meals were the shit. We would all be enjoying a delicious meal while sitting around with a successful, usually highly at that, engineer who would tell us about his career. I gotta say, looking back on it, that is what really got me into engineering. Most importantly, the guy never flaunted his wealth. Sure, he drove a nice car, but he never acted like he was above you. He was also probably the most influential teacher I had in my 4 years at that school. I'm fortunate enough to have entered the 0.5% of earners about a year and a half ago. Before that I was living in my mom's basement, barely getting by, pulling in something like $15,000 a year. I wouldn't call myself rich yet, but by far the best thing about money is freedom. It's very liberating being able to do what you want, when you want, being able to travel wherever you want, eat whatever meal at whatever restaurant without thinking twice about the price. That kind of thing. The bad, minor things, but being expected to pay for tabs and things like that do happen. I'm not as rich as some people here, but I can still answer. I think the worst, indeed the only downside to being rich, is that in the UK at least that brings with it certain assumptions about one's character. Being privately educated and well spoken automatically earns the antipathy of people I would otherwise be good friends with. I go to football matches most weekends wearing my team's colours. And really that's the only time I can fit in with Joe the Builder from the local pub. Of course, for Joe the ticket was a significant outlay of his weekly budget. So we're still not on any fair level. The biggest perk is easy, though. I have never once in my life thought the phrase "I wonder if I can afford this," and I probably never will. I'm not super rich, so I don't look at luxury yachts and say give me two. And that level of outlandish wealth is beyond me. However, if I were to decide right now that I wanted to turn one wall of my bedroom into a single colossal television screen, I could just go and pay cash for that and I wouldn't be worried about where the rest of my bills for the month were coming from. Of course, The result of that is that I actually live fairly frugally. The freedom to do exactly as I please is so de-stressing that I just don't really have a need for ostentatious entertainment arrangements. It's not about spending money, it's about having it to spend if I wanted to. Self-made multimillionaire here from an upper middle class family. The best thing. Freedom. Freedom to do what you want and when you want. Money gives you options. The worst thing. You spend a lot of time thinking about money. For example, the stock market took a dive today and I lost 7 figures, on paper. I'm not sweating about it. But it is annoying. I have a lot of assets and I constantly have to watch over them. I have to make sure that no one is effing me, lawyers, accountants, business partners, etc. I have over 60 different bank accounts relating to various convoluted trusts all set up by $1,000 hour professionals in order to shelter assets and minimize taxes legally. There is just a lot of shit to be aware of every single day. A couple other things. Since I'm self-made, I don't have any of that guilt and feeling of uselessness that comes with inherited money. I pretty much do what I want and when I want. I take care of my family very well. Spoil them in fact. To me it is all about enjoying the time I have on this planet with my loved ones. So I do what I want as long as I don't hurt anyone. I have all the material shit I want, a lot. Now I get more satisfaction from seeing smiles on other people's faces. I don't know what qualifies as rich. I know my tax bracket is in the top %5. Combined my wife and I make about $500. 000. Rich to some. Middle class to others. I grew up lower middle class and now that my wife and I have some financial security our lives are a bit easier. I don't worry about spending small amounts of money, $20, $50. I still agonize over anything larger than $100. I drive a Toyota Tacoma. I can't bring myself to spend a lot of money on a nicer car even though I could afford it. My wife and I save a lot. I don't want to work forever. I would like to retire while young enough to enjoy it. As soon as my son is in college I'm pulling the ripcord and retiring. Old habits and attitudes are hard to break. I was used to not having much money so we still live like that. We do take nicer vacations and live in a very nice home in a great community but I don't feel a lot different. Just safer. Best equals freedom from monetary stress. Single biggest stressor for Americans. And having the ability to have almost any experience you want. Whenever you want. Worst equals resentment. Family. Friends. Strangers. Even if you don't flaunt it, I don't. And worked your ass off for it, I do. Was broke in debt 5 years ago. You're automatically an asshole to some people who also work hard and want more but haven't been as fortunate. Worst part 2 equals you become a bit paranoid. Everyone I know who has gone from low to high economic status has confirmed the same thing. You start to wonder if friends are genuine. If a girl you are dating would be interested otherwise. If something is actually a good investment deal or you're just being hunted. Etc. I would wager there is a big difference between those that started rich and those that become rich. If you became rich, you probably feel the best thing is that you don't have to worry about money anymore. If you started rich, you never had to worry. So there is no frame of reference and the best thing to you is probably something else. I grew up fairly wealthy. Family had net worth of somewhere shy of $15 million US. I never really thought about it until I hit my final years of school and people were surprised I came to school in our private plane. I live on an island off the coast of England and attended boarding school on the mainland. But I was a shy kid and was bullied horribly so never became an obnoxious rich kid who bragged to everyone. After having finishing university I am no longer supported by the family trust fund and me and my wife provide for ourselves. Life is a bit of a struggle right now and we are living modest paycheck to paycheck. But are generally happy. It's very comforting knowing that my family have money and should something go horribly wrong I will never be left without. Also on the occasions I go home, I live in Dubai now, I get treated nicely and generally don't pay for anything. I'm very thankful for my family's hard work and very glad I got the education I received and hope to be able to pass the same experience on to my children. Edit. A word. That feeling you get when you buy a ton of games on a Steam sale but never play any of them. But all of the time. The best thing about having money is not having to worry about money. I still have stringent financial rules I follow, which is what helped me get to where I am. However, if I want to travel to Europe, it is more about finding the time than anything else. When you get rich, you realize that time is the greatest luxury. You can always get more money, buy more cars, have more houses, but you can't ever earn back more time. Once it is spent, it is gone. I think that applies for everyone, understanding that their time is their most valuable asset. I feel like if you've never struggled with money, you can't know the best thing about it. I've read through the comments and not a single one mentioned the word security. I'm just a blue collar guy. I work 2 jobs, one part-time and one full-time, and I attend a local community college. I just once, for a moment, want to feel safe. Old money here. Come from a royal family that branched into tech. $100 mil across the family. People have covered a lot of good points already, but people haven't really gotten to what is in my mind the biggest downside. Pressure to succeed. When I was at Harvard, I always needed to prove to people that I was there because I was smart, not because my family has been attending since the 1700s. When I'm at my job, I always need to do better than my CEO father. When I'm in a conversation, I need to prove I'm as smart as all the people around me, and that I deserve my privilege. When I visit home, I need to prove to my law partner mother that I'm just as capable as her. When you're born into power, the bar is set really high. Many of my cousins have broken under the stress and turned to drugs. I won't pretend that I think my privilege is a net bad thing for me. But when everyone in your family for the past 400 years have been leaders, thinkers, or moneymakers, it can be tough to live up. 3 weeks late. Bury me. Had a friend who inherited a few millions from his parents. Now he lives like a f***ing prick. I really don't care if you're rich or poor. As long as you act like a nice person, I will always be your friend. However, sometime people I knew who turned rich always look back to us poor guys like some kind of hobos. I hate that. I worked my ass off and only make like 30k a year. I once got rich for a moment when invested some of my money in BTC when the bubble was booming. Ended up saving gathered together with my family to buy ourselves a house. And enough money for me to live the next 5 years. I have had the blessing of growing up in a top 1% family. To echo many other sentiments I have read, I get unbridled freedom. That's not the rent a limo and do blow off of models tits kind of freedom. I am working towards my PhD in a scientific field. My ultimate goal is to use science to create better medicine so that people's suffering can be alleviated. A PhD stipend pays shit, but I don't have to worry about rent, which gives me the chance to pursue a field where I can help the afflicted and ease suffering. That's true freedom. I'm rich and the only bad things about being wealthy are family, friends and women presuming you'll just give them money to solve their problems or invest in whatever ridiculous idea of the day they have. I have a hard and fast rule. Never lend money to family or friends and never do business with family or friends. Either give them the money with no strings or don't. It's that simple. I used to babysit Warren Buffett's grandchildren who lived next door to me, and did not know it until the family went out of town one time to California. I live in Omaha, NE, where Warren is from. They gave us the number to where they were staying. My mom called them for whatever reason and was greeted with a "This is Warren." When she called, she was caught off guard and asked for our neighbor. They weren't there. So, she left a message and asked for them to call back. Sure enough, we got a call back with the caller ID of Warren Buffett. They never bragged and are so down to earth. Even gave my parents tickets to the Berkshire Hathaway events. Free. They are the nicest and most genuine family. who live the life of any normal family. I grew up in an upper middle class neighborhood. Not in a sea of mansions. They rescue St. Bernards and paid me well to babysit and dog sit. My good friend Negast is a beautiful woman from Ethiopia, and she, like lots of Ethiopians, first worked for a Saudi family before coming to America. She, being beautiful, literate, and able to speak several languages, became a handmaid for a Saudi princess. She told me many times of her princess spending insane amounts of money to do mundane things. She wanted to see Michael Jackson in France, so she bought every seat on a commercial flight to France while sending her plane to Indonesia, where her family had a tropical getaway. Her and her personal retinue went on the commercial flight to France, where she had paid for 2 whole floors in a hotel. Why the misdirection? A devout Saudi princess went into her room on one floor, and a hot Arab lady ready to party with Michael Jackson left her room on another floor. Aside from all that being absolutely incomprehensible, my favorite part of her story is involved Negast and her princess getting into a conversation about the amount of money in her bank. The princess thought Negast was saying the words wrong, but in actuality the princess was unable to comprehend that there was an actual amount of money linked to her card. She could not understand that her money could be quantified. She thought it was endless. I'll also add that one of the people I work for once said to me, "Yano, you start to lose a little bit of satisfaction with money." Like the other day, I was sitting there thinking, what do I want next? I couldn't think of anything. Double quote. I wanted to say, well, you could pay me a little more than 18k a year. I'm struggling. I don't want a lot. I just want to be able to buy a house, get married, and not have to think about money every single day. But I didn't. I just nodded my head and responded with, I could see that. But then again, a private jet would be nice to have. I worked in a casino and had the same experience. The uber wealthy you would never know. I was assigned a security detail to a Mexican guy. I did the usual, introduced myself and said why I was there. He told me it wasn't necessary. The casino MGR requested it, so I had to. I explained I had to, assignment and all. He just went about his business playing a 25-cent slot machine for about 2 hours. Then he went to a blackjack table, asked the pit boss for a 250k marker, a casino loan basically, and ended up cashing out at 2.5 million. Every time he got blackjack, he would tip the dealer $500 and me $100. Every time he got a drink, which wasn't often, he got a glass of cognac that was $300 a glass. The casino would try to comp him, but he insisted he wanted to pay and would just give the price of the drink and $100 to the waitress. He was really nice and down to earth. When he cashed out, he had the money transferred to his account. I walked him to his room, and just as I turned to leave, I wasn't expecting a tip since he had already given me about $1,500 at the blackjack table. He told me to wait a sec, pulled a $5,000 chip from his pocket and gave it to me, and apologized for me having to stand near him all night. Later that night, a co-worker told me the guy's name, and it turns out he was one of the richest PPL in the world and had built his company from the ground up. I was amazed. Usually the PPL I see and consider rich in the casino was so self-entitled and complained about every little detail. I'm not rich but well off. I used to live in a fraternity, but since I'm an upperclassman have moved out. In the house no one ever worried about money. We paid one due and that was it, included food, cable, internet, water, even some alcohol etc. Now I live with all my friends in one apartment complex, and a lot of them take out loans, are on aid, have jobs to get them through college etc. I work summer and winter break jobs but never during the year, and my buddies will get annoyed at me when I have so much free time cause I don't need a job, and my parents will just give me cash as long as my grades are high. It's just weird living with guys like that who can't pay the cable bill on time because they haven't been paid yet, while I'm over here just calling my parents to pay for it. They can get a little annoyed when I always want to blow cash at the bars etc. But besides that we all get along pretty well. TLDR. In college, living with friends that work alone their way through school. It can get awkward. Someone I know owns a restaurant. He was hired to cater a small house party last minute. The guys wanted steak, so they sent the guy I know to Texas on one of their private jets to pick up the meat they wanted. Once he got back, they said they weren't in the mood and would rather have fish instead. That's what it's like to be rich. My dad's startup got a relatively small investment from Alibaba. Working in the medical field, I have no knowledge of anything technical. But still, I was asked to accompany my dad to a dinner meeting. Having very poor Mandarin, I wasn't able to really grasp the conversation, but I did get a small look at how billionaires, especially their children, behave at dinner. One guy really stuck in my mind. I believe he was the son of the founder of Baidu. Came to the fancy traditional Chinese dinner in rags. Ratty dirt green shirt. Dirty grey cargo pants. And flip-flops. I couldn't believe it. I remember one of the women. I don't really know who she was. I think a headhunter was hitting on him like no tomorrow and he couldn't give a damn. He looked so bored. All the time. I was told later the guy gets about $1.5 million a month. Till. Many not so rich people expect their super rich friends to get them through life. As a consequence, they stop being friends and super rich friends are left with very few or no friends friendless because there are so few of the same wealth levels. I'm friends, although not entirely besties, with a gentleman that sold his mobile advertising company to Google for $700 million a few years coming out of college. When I was chatting with him at a conference, he said it's been a bit of crisis for him personally because once money is no issue in your life overnight, you start to question why you aren't helping everyone and anyone every chance you get. Since money isn't stopping you anymore, because you can virtually afford anything, you begin to wonder where the line is drawn. At what point do you have to be selfish and tell yourself that just because you can donate $50,000 to the church? Should you? Since you can go and pay for so and so's operation, are you entitled to? He said it's a very weird feeling that he struggles with every day. Sometimes not having the means to do anything you want is the most peaceful feeling in the world, because it simply eliminates a lot of options. As far as work goes, he started a startup incubator and hired all his brightest friends. So far they've put out a few apps and different products, but they just get a bunch of salary and mess around with cool tech all day with no pressure to succeed. I'm not rich by any means, but I do have a very posh British accent and I've noticed that this makes other people treat me differently than my friends and peers. I am a military brat and I was raised abroad, so didn't develop a regional accent and I speak the Queen's English. Nothing pretentious. It's just the way it happened, but I'm often compared to a female version of Hugh Grant. I know that's nothing to be proud of, but people treat you differently when you speak with a particular accent. In my early teens I worked hard to try and use slang and to speak less posh to try to fit in with my friends, but it's hard to change your accent. Either people think you're a rich bitch. Nope. Or that you are someone who is shallow and weak and lives off mummy and daddy. My mum was a nurse and my dad was a soldier. Neither of them had any money. But the accent defines you to others. In an ideal world I would have had an Irish accent. Both of my parents were Irish. Alas, it wasn't to be. I hate it when people say they are self-made. No one is self-made. You are born with nothing. Your parents give you life. Someone gives you food. Someone gives you an education. When you start off, someone gives you a job. When you didn't have credit, someone gives you a chance. The only thing that really separates most of us is how much we were given and how much we realized how important it was to put those gifts to good use. In that spirit, if you're a billionaire, why not give me $1 million? It will go to good use and it's less than 0.5% of your total wealth. For a long time, I thought I was pretty poor. Not homeless. No electricity poor. But no new clothes for 2 years poor. Turns out I wasn't. I wasn't rich either. But I got to go to a fancy private school and it was a great experience. Everyone went to college. And it was only when my dad wrote what his income was somewhere that I understood what was going on. My brothers had been spoiled. We had the money to spare to buy anything they wanted. My parents must have decided that I wouldn't get all this stuff. They wanted me to be smart about money. And I was. Because they didn't give me anything I wanted. And I had to explain to them why I wanted it. what it would do for me, and why I deserve it. I was turned into a money saving machine just because I thought my family was poor. Again, we were not filthy rich, but we had nice things, and everything was stable. It was the line between stability and being able to buy things on a whim. I know I am late to the rich party and this will get buried. I have just one observation. I have noticed a lot of supposed wealthy people here talking about being raised humble. However, I don't feel many of them are. I don't believe that being humble is as simple as buying less, living beneath your means, saying thank you to your parents or whatever power that be about your wealth, not shaming or judging others, or working a modest job. I feel that being humble includes realizing you are extremely fortunate, beyond measure in some cases, and then making it your life's passion to educate, enhance, or create a better society for the rest. Maybe some of you are working towards that, but as I have read, many of you just want to say you are humble and not brag about your money and pursue your own selfish interests without fear of struggle if you fail. All while having no concerns of making this world and our future a better one, even though you have more means than 90% plus of this world. Just one perspective. You mad, bro? I am not personally rich, but I am from a very wealthy family. My parents started out with nothing and worked hard all their lives to attain what they have now. They are the kind of people that will call a waiter over while friends are in the bathroom and pay for everyone's meals before they can politely refuse. Giving to others feels good no matter how rich you are. But if you are rich, you have more to give. Close bracket. The worst part of growing up with rich parents was the feeling that I didn't deserve the generosity that they showed towards me. That no matter how good a son I was, I could never actually deserve how good I had it. I grew up with a friend who was my age. I was fortunate to go to the town that we lived in's only private school where he and I became friends. That school only went to 8th grade. So I went to public school while his parents put him and his little sister in the next town over's private school, gave them their own apartment. At like 14 we were still friends pretty much for the next few years. His parents were both doctors in the town I lived in. While he was at the private high school, he hooked up with a girl whose childless uncle left her close to $500 million when she was about 18. They married and moved to Beverly Hills. I shit you not. They now have 4 kids and run a non-profit to allocate and avert taxes from the millions they have. He doesn't talk to me anymore. They take great pride in the pictures they post with stars and sport figures that come to their house for these events and parties. I kind of feel sorry for him. I think that even though he is living the life that they are all lost in who they are based on who they know, neither of them has worked a solid day. And I doubt their kids ever will. To me they are plastic. And I honestly am the one who stopped our friendship when our conversations basically turned into who he saw or hung out with. Who in the hell wants to live that life? My wife and I do well enough. We are upper middle class. But we are well grounded and have honest friends. Not plastic ones. You know. Like friends that will bail you out of jail and not go straight to TMZ. I am part of the working rich. My wife and I make combined over $500k a year at 33. The best thing about being rich is the lack of stress. I do not have to think about money day to day. If I want a $5 sandwich or go out for a $50 meal, essentially the same thing. Time becomes more valuable. We're willing to spend extra for a taxi over taking a bus to avoid hassle and save 5-15 mins even if an extra 10-20 bucks. Able to buy a nice house and have a really nice pool, which was always on my bucket list. The best thing it will do though is allow me to retire around 40-45 and finally take my dream job of high school history teacher. But without the lifestyle adjustment. Worst thing about being wealthy is all very nitpicky. Knowing how valuable my job is. Semi-stressful in worrying about losing it. Then again, have enough FU money and spending my working hours browsing Reddit. So not so bad. Being relatively wealthy all my life made the acquisition of wealth a key goal in my career. Hence why I didn't follow dream job of teaching out of college. Overall, money just doesn't solve as many problems as you hoped. Like Forrest Gump said, it's one less thing to worry about. That is a huge positive, but doesn't solve life's problems. Overall, being wealthy is freedom to follow your own interests and not have to worry about price coming into your decision-making process. I'm in no way rich. Far from it. But I recently started a job with an okay salary. I've always lived paycheck to paycheck. Needed help from my parents' family at times. The best thing about this is not worrying about money so much. Sure, I have to consciously save money for things I need. But I no longer have to worry about buying a $25 present for family members during the holidays. I prepaid my bills, so I have very little to worry about financially. I am starting to feel secure. And my salary is not large, and it will go up as I move vertically and horizontally in the business world. I'm finally excited about the future. Growing up, the family in the ranch across the road from ours was very well off. New cars every 2 years. Full entertainment systems in every room of the house. Big pool. Every toy ever made. House staff and diners out every night. They would even pay extra to have pizza delivered 20 miles out in the country. We were poor as shit. The kids there were the same age as me and my siblings, so playtime was frequent and almost always at their house. Their parents actually loved it when we came over because we were so happy with everything, while the kids who lived there just complained they were always bored. My buddy gained a lot of money from his parents' death when he was in high school, and his uncle made some very good investments with the money. To the tune of mid-8 digits. He is 29 and builds cars for a living. Because he can, and it is what he likes. His tire budget is more than I make in a year. I'd say the biggest difference between him then and him now is his lack of worry. He is one of the nicest and caring people I've ever met and extremely giving. But he doesn't really have the same concerns as I have. I have to make sure I have my bills in order, and I have to work so I can eat, whereas he can do nothing and be alright for the rest of his life. He is constantly trying to buy me things. Especially for holidays. But they are so unrealistic for something I could accept. That he actually finds it difficult to buy things for people. Example, he tried to buy me a house one year for Christmas. For my last birthday. He tried to give me one of his $60 K cars. I just can't accept those things. He is a great guy and one of my best friends. But his outlook on life seems so completely alien to how I live. It makes us feel like completely different species. The best thing about being rich is the wallet doesn't buy happiness. It can pay for a lot of not badness. Double quote. I fell into a small fortune of about $250,000 a year ago from a great uncle whose entire estate became mine. I'm 26 years old. Middle class. Just graduated college. The only money I intend to spend of it is to pay my sister's tuition debt. To some it feels like a joyride, but I haven't touched a penny of it since it's a huge responsibility and sitting in stocks and bonds. I've told a few close friends but by no means made it public. It's a bit overwhelming to be sitting on such a pile of money not knowing what to do with it. My dream car's an Aston Martin, but I'm not buying one. I think it would be better to use it to start a business in the future, to do something I'd really be passionate about. I've heard stories of lottery winners who years later are worse off than before they won because they just don't know what to do with it and spend it all one spree. I'm just idling my time until a great idea or opportunity comes along I can grow and invest my time and passion into. Until that time I try to remain humble and drive my sister's old 2000 Ford Focus back and forth to work and only spend the money I make from my paychecks. I have a few friends born into obscene wealth. Most are pretty good people. Some are so disconnected from reality it's laughable. One friend is 25 and has a Porsche collection worth over $250k. He doesn't like when his wealth is brought up as he feels alienated. He has struggled with people using him and finding out his friends were opportunists. It's really kind of sad. This will probably get buried, but I knew a lot of rich families growing up and many of them would state that they almost forgot that they were rich. They would spend on things they needed and occasionally splurge, and it would rarely occur to them that they might run out of money. Reading all these stories is sobering for me. I'm in my 40s and live on less than $200 a week as I'm now a full-time student again for the next 4 years. I'm heavily in debt for the fees and will be for a decade. I make do and part of me appreciates having simplified my life financially. But I have to think about my budgets every day and I often can't bear to even buy coffee as I try to live on the bare minimum so I can save my pennies for a treat. When an unexpected or large expense comes along, it can really floor me. Though, the good part is I'm learning fascinating things. I'm never bored and I'm out of a shitty job. And I hope to do some good for the world when I get done. Luckily, money's not everything. I only have some week-old letters for dinner tonight. This thread is depressing. My best friend from high school is quite wealthy. When she turned 18 she received a large trust fund sum. And will receive 2 more on her 21st and 25th birthday. With monthly checks in between. She is an extremely generous person. And money means nothing to her unless she can share the experiences it grants her with her loved ones. That being said, I've seen her get taken advantage of too many times to count. The only time she hears from her birth parents is when they want money. And most of her blood relatives follow suit. It breaks my heart that she's seen as a bank rather than someone with a heart of gold. Reading these responses you realize how people who aren't rich really think about people in their lives who they know are rich, and if they do something slightly nice to them that they suddenly don't secretly look at them with envy. If I ever get rich, I'm not telling anyone because it's absolutely true that people will treat you differently. I have a friend that inherited money from oil and he has not worked in the last 15 years or so and he is absolutely set for life. What is most annoying to me, and maybe this is a bit of jealousy on my part, is that with all this freedom, he does absolutely nothing. He doesn't travel. He doesn't try to learn or experience new things. He hardly buys anything nice or at least interesting. He just hangs out all day in coffee shops and complains about his girlfriend. It sucks being wealthy and then having it stripped away by divorce. I'm not personally wealthy. I do okay now but actually grew up dirt poor as did my wife. That said, I have a very close friend who grew up with extraordinary wealth, servants, chauffeurs, security details, multiple homes. Things I can't even imagine, and we've discussed it before just because I find it all so mind-blowing. For her the best part was the freedom it gave her. She traveled wherever she wanted and has seen the world. The drawbacks are many people hate her without knowing her. Many people want to take advantage of her. And even people like me who are very close to her treat her differently, often without meaning to. In my case, I've always been reluctant to have her come to my house because while it is very nice for me, I know it will likely look very unimpressive to her. It sort of bred some sort of insecurity in me I didn't know I had. That really made her feel bad that I would think it even mattered to her where I lived. I just turned 23 and with some good luck and hard work I've managed to make a little money. I have a nice condo in Bellevue. Wow. New Mercedes and some fun toys. My buddy on the other had just bought a 2015 Lamborghini Huracan, which I could not afford. It's funny because after dinner the other day I thought, man, that would be the life. And overall just envious of his lifestyle. Not realizing that's what some people probably say about me. I've had money and I have not had money. In reality, it's really not that different. I come from a very wealthy family and I think the best advice I was ever given came from a very close family friend of mine. She reminded me that it's not who you are underneath. It's what you do that defines you. So far I've lived my life by that mantra. And it's served me well. Worked at a gas station in high school, 2002 to 2006. At least 60% of luxury cars had a card bounce. The dude driving the diesel Golf. Dude's card never bounced. My old boss was a millionaire. Even on vacation she works. She never stops. She worked her way up from being dirt poor and has never been a snob to anyone or flaunted her money. She drives a humble little Prius, for economic reasons, and told her daughters they get nothing unless they work for it. I got totally smashed once at the Christmas party and she was a little tipsy too. and offered to dance with me on an empty dance floor. Asterisk. Do you know how weird it was to have a millionaire grinding on me with her husband, who is the company's head lawyer dude, and the rest of the company watching? I just went for it and tried my best. She told me afterwards I needed to relax. We were off the clock so she wouldn't judge me for being relaxed and getting into the party spirit. She complimented me though on following her to the dance floor. No insult. No nothing. She is one of the most humble people I have ever met. She stops to bring her workers tons of food whenever she comes to visit her warehouses. Least selfish person I have ever met. My wife's family's net worth is in the multi-millions. But they are the cheapest people I've ever met. They grew their own vegetables. Reused trash for compost. Never had the desire to travel outside of the United States. Live in a modest 4-bedroom home. The main family car 15 years old. I could go on and on. The one thing that struck me odd was the fact that her father always wants to earn more money, although he never has the desire to spend it. Rich means just having enough money where you don't lose sleep over it and you don't argue about it with your family. My wife and I don't make a ton of money, but we're rich. On the other hand, I have a close friend who makes 7 times as much money as me and, judging by his stress over money, he's not rich at all. I would like to know your take on the circulation of money. I read through the top comments here and lots of the answers from the well-off. Not sure if under $100M should be considered rich these days. Described as living your lives very moderately. Trying to vie for the normalcy. To me it seems as a waste. That when you've accumulated resources you just let them rest in some trust fund until you hit a bad streak or something. Like the mentioned Warren Buffett, who's also living much the same way middle class would. Not really using his fortune. On the other hand, we have someone like Elon Musk who's investing significant amount of his wealth in our common future. That's someone I really respect. And I'm just really wondering, why are the majority of rich people settling for the status quo instead of being the driving force of change? There's a distinct feeling that the rest of the population hates you, and another distinct feeling that it's justified. Hood rich here. In my experience I can sum it up to mo money, mo problems. This may sound weird but I make $9.40 an hour and compared to all my friends I am the rich one. I always spot people money. Buy dinner or drinks when I can, and if one of my friends is short on something I try to cover it. All my friends make like $7.25. TLDR $9.40 an hour is considered rich to me and my friends. I'm an international student who's being paid full ride by his parents to study in the US. I spend money whenever I want since my parents wire transfer money to my bank account whenever I need it. I usually feel guilty that I have all of this money, and that I don't worry about spending it as much as my friends. It's a very comfortable life though. If I want to buy something I can get it. I don't have to worry about spending money on too much food ever. Although lately I've been very focused on budgeting myself because I feel too guilty spending all of my parents' money. When I was 13 years old, I thought earning $20.00 per hour would make me a rich man. Those were the days. Is this the wrong place to look for a sugar daddy? The first question that needs to be asked is what is rich? I don't consider myself to be rich, but I think a lot of people would consider $60,000 a year to be rich. I'm lucky enough to pull $100K at 24. I came from a middle class family. Went to a normal college. Just got really lucky. Anyways, I'm the only one of my friends with a real job, let alone one that pays pretty well. I've become so alienated from my hometown friends now that I live in New York City. They think I'm too good for where I'm from, which is why I moved away. It really sucks because I just want to fit in again, but my job has changed everything. They don't know exactly how much I make, but the face I don't shy away from the occasional decent dinner and live in New York is enough of a giveaway that I'm doing a little better than most. The good news side is if I want to travel, I do it. If I want to go to a sporting event, concert, show, etc. I just do it. It's a mixed bag. But I feel so blessed every day. My parents are wealthy. I am not. I moved out in my late teens and have been working my ass off since then to make ends meet. Finally in my mid-20s I've got a decent career I am building on. Money doesn't make you happier. But it is much easier to live without the stress that not having money comes with. When you live every day knowing that you're one broken part on your car, one traffic ticket, one health bill etc. away from being broke and wondering how you'll pay your rent, car insurance, groceries etc. It weighs on you heavily. Maybe your needs are met. Maybe you can get a nice thing here and there and you're way better off than many people already. But you always know that the difference between where you are now and being in their position is only $1.200 problem, and that is hard. Considering I'm unemployed and have been sitting on my last $25 for 2 weeks for emergencies. This thread makes me depressed. Why did I come here?